Hello and welcome to Dining with Death, where we discuss infamous cases of death and murder that have an element of food to them, and then we cook the food from the case. I'm Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Today we're going to be talking about the poisoning of Erik XIV, the Mad King of Sweden. Erik XIV was born at Tre Kronos Castle in Stockholm, Sweden at 9 o'clock in the morning on December 13th, 1533. His mother was Catherine of Saxe-Lauenburg, and his father was Gustaf Eriksson of Sweden. Gustaf I, quite the magnificent beard there, was a tyrant known for unwarranted acts of violence like chasing servants with a knife, ripping out his own daughter's hair when they disobeyed him, and even beating a goldsmith to death for taking a day off without asking. Sounds like a great guy. Erik's mother died before he was 2 years old, and his father, then going by Gustaf Vasa, married Margaret Leijonhufvud. I have no idea what I'm doing here. She was a Swedish noblewoman. His family environment was rather unstable, but Erik was known as a good student and was successful learning foreign languages, mathematics, history, and astrology. Early in his life, Erik was referred to as chosen king and hereditary king. And there are words for these phrases in Swedish, but I am going to spare you the pronunciation attempts. He was regarded as intelligent and artistically skilled, as well as politically ambitious. As a teenager, Erik began binging on alcohol and was known to get plastered at parties. His father was disgusted with his behavior, and that was only the beginning. Against his father's wishes, Erik entered into marriage negotiations with the future Queen Elizabeth of England. Tensions between Erik and his father grew. Erik also made unsuccessful marriage proposals to Mary, Queen of Scots, Renata of Lorraine, Anna of Saxony, and Christine of Hesse. He failed in all of these romantic endeavors. It is said that the women got bored of his heavy-handed style of pursuit, and Queen Elizabeth even wrote in a letter, quote, "We are grieved we cannot gratify your serene highness with the same level of affection. We have never conceived a feeling of that kind of affection towards anyone. We do not conceive in our hearts to take a husband, and I highly recommend the single life," unquote. I'm kind of like an old Liz. She don't need no man. I guess also when you're the Queen of England, you can refer to yourself as we. I just might start doing that, you know. I'm almost 50 now, I can do that, right? Erik XIV eventually married Karin Mansdaughter, who was employed as a servant to the king's musician. She was first Erik's mistress and then became his wife. So she didn't do too bad for herself, right? When Erik's father, the king, Gustaf Vasa, died in 1560, he was crowned Erik XIV. From the beginning of his reign, Erik was in opposition to the Swedish nobility. He chose advisors that had been unpopular with his father, and he engaged in some political maneuvers that made many of the ruling class very unhappy. Unlike his father, who had been satisfied with ruling an independent state, Erik tried to expand his influence into the Baltic region and Estonia. His expansionism resulted in Sweden becoming a great power in the 17th century, but also resulted in a clash with his cousin, Frederick II of Denmark. Most of Erik XIV's reign was dominated by the Livonian War and the Scandinavian 7 Years' War against Denmark. Erik XIV successfully repelled most Danish attempts at conquest, but he was unable to keep his own acquisitions. Early on in his reign, Erik began showing signs of mental instability. Later in his reign, he became outright insane. Some scholars claim that his illness was with him since childhood, and others claim it manifested with the Sture murders. The Sture murders were the murders of 5 incarcerated Swedish nobles by Erik XIV and his guards. The nobles had been charged with conspiracy against the king, and some had been sentenced to death. Erik XIV believed that these nobles had revealed important information to his enemies during the Livonian and 7 Years' Wars, and he was paranoid that Niels Svantesson Sture was out to steal his throne. There were several trials that led to the incarceration of the 5 prisoners. At one point, King Erik XIV visited the prisoners and begged their forgiveness, stating he had done them wrong and he promised them full reconciliation. But as he left the castle after the visit, he was informed that his brother John had started a rebellion against him. Erik XIV then returned to the castle where the prisoners were held a few hours after his first visit, and he stabbed Niels Sture in his chest. The king's guards finished the murder of Sture, and then Erik and his guards killed the rest of the prisoners because he said they would never forgive him. After this incident, it became clear that Erik XIV had no intention of playing by the rules, and from that point on, he was thought to be mad. After the Sture murders, Erik XIV imprisoned his brother John, who had taken up a rebellion against him, and things in the Swedish nobility began to come to a climax. Early in 1568, Erik seemed to recover his reason and attempted to reconcile with his brother, but it was on the condition that he accept Erik's marriage to Karin Mansdotter. The marriage was solemnized, and Karin was crowned queen. Making claims of Erik's insanity, the dukes and nobles rebelled, and after some resistance, Erik was imprisoned by his brother John, who then took power in September of 1568. For the next 7 years, the ex-king was held prisoner in many different castles in both Sweden and Finland. He died in prison in the Orbius Castle in 1577 at the age of 43. His final meal was a bowl of pea soup. He is buried at Västerås Cathedral. In 1958, his remains were exhumed for testing, where it was confirmed that he died of arsenic poisoning. In researching several of these cases where royals are poisoned, I have found that soup is usually the vehicle used to do it with. I would imagine that strong flavors like onion and ham, things used in soup, are helpful in covering the taste of poisons. I haven't ever tasted poison, but I don't imagine it tastes very good. It sounds like Erik the Mad King did plenty to bring on the fate of imprisonment, and in the end, the nobles decided it was easier to get rid of him than to deal with him any longer. It was a heck of a beard, though, you have to admit. So today we are going to be cooking a personal favorite of mine. I grew up eating pea soup. It was something that my grandmother Lampman, who was a fantastic cook, made all the time, and I liked it even as a kid. It's not the most lovely dish to look at, but it tastes really good. So stay with me as we cook what was King Erik XIV of Sweden's last meal as we go dining with death. We are ready to cook. We are going to be making ärtsoppa, pea soup, which is a traditional Swedish dish. I have 1 pound of dried green peas here. You can also use yellow peas, and you can also use whole dried peas. I just happen to be able to find half. I have had these soaking in water since about 7 o'clock this morning. They've doubled in size. But it's really important to always give any dried bean or pea that you're using a good soak for soups and things like that. I guess on the off occasion there would be some recipes where it wouldn't be required, but normally you're going to need to soak them and kind of pick through them, pick out the bad pieces, and give them a good strain, which is what I'm going to do now. The peas have soaked for about 8 hours, and now they've been rinsed. They're still hard, but they've got kind of a soft outer shell now, and they will cook a lot faster when we go to make our soup. I've got 2 white onions here, and we are going to give those a fine dice. Okay, 2 whole onions are chopped into a fine dice, but we have 1 onion to go. This is a very old school method of getting seasoning into a dish. We're going to take this whole onion and we're going to pierce it, and everywhere we pierce it, we're going to stud it with a clove. Very old school, I love it. Isn't that cute? I want a good solid cup of carrots in this soup, so I'm gonna peel these 3 carrots and then we're gonna give them a chop. A large portion of this soup is gonna get blended, so we don't have to be perfect with our super chefy little dice, but it's always nice to keep things as uniform as possible so they cook evenly. Got a heaping cup of carrots here, and I'm going to set that aside. I have these 2 beautiful ham hocks from my local butcher. You do not have to go and specifically purchase ham hocks for a dish like this. You can always make this dish after Easter or after Christmas or any time that you've had a ham, and you can just use the center bone of the ham for flavoring and make sure there's still some meat on it, because we are going to use some of the meat off of these. But this is a great dish to make if you ever have leftover ham bone. This is a total of 7 cups of water going into a large stock pot. To the water, we are going to add the ham hocks. Plop. The chopped carrots. The soaked and strained and rinsed peas. And again, that's a pound. We're going to add our diced onion and our cute little clove crown. This onion is royalty. Let's give that a good stir, making sure everything's down in the water. The ham hocks might poke up just a little bit, but we're going to put that on the heat, and we're going to bring that to a boil and let it simmer for 90 minutes. This is going to be a little bit of a reverse before and after, because it starts out quite beautiful and colorful. But then as it starts to boil, you have to remove these impurities from the ham hocks and the peas. You're going to keep that cooking at a good rolling boil for a little bit, and then you can turn it down and let it simmer. The peas start to break down. You get this wonderful color, and then it's closer to time to strain it. I have about half of the contents of the pot, about 4 cups, and I'm going to put it in my blender. We're going to blend that up so you'll have some of the soup that's a little chunkier, some of the soup that's a little bit smoother. Very important, and seasoned cooks and chefs do this all the time, so don't feel bad if it's ever happened to you. Whenever you blend anything hot, you have to remove this little cap from the top of the blender, because the heat, the steam, will pop this thing off and cause a mess. So remove that, and even when your lid is on and you have this vent happening, start your blender really, really slow. I usually keep a kitchen towel handy for disasters, because it can still happen. But if you have a nice blender, even some of the cheaper blenders now will have variable speeds. That is not beautiful, but it smells good. We're gonna take the blended portion of the soup, add it back to the stock pot. And to that, we are going to add a teaspoon of thyme. This is out of my mom and dad's garden, so it's extra good. A teaspoon of ground ginger, a teaspoon of kosher salt, and a half a teaspoon of black pepper. And we are going to return that to the heat for another 30 minutes. You could even go an hour. The soup has now boiled another 30 minutes, reduced down and thickened a little bit more. I've removed the 2 ham hocks and the onion that was studded with cloves, which kind of disintegrated. So if you are really averse to having the cloves in the soup, I would suggest wrapping that in a piece of cheesecloth, because it did kind of fall apart and I wasn't able to fish out all the cloves. I don't mind cloves, but they are a really strong flavor that some people don't love, so just a note. We're going to take the meat off of these ham hocks and add it to our soup. Okay, we've got all this nice chopped ham from the ham hocks, and of course all of the flavor that they permeated the soup with. It's going to be really tasty. We're going to bring the soup back over. We're going to add the ham in. We're going to give it a final stir, and then we're going to taste it. Got the soup here. Let's put the ham in. And reserve just a little bit for garnish. Well, Hanishi is not winning any beauty pageants, but I have to tell you, it smells really good, and I'm kind of excited to taste it. It's been I don't even know how many years since my grandmother made this. I mean, she's been passed for a very long time, and I haven't had it since then, so. Okay, I've added all of the ham back in. I've saved a little bit to garnish. And then I read that traditionally in Sweden, it is served with a dollop of grainy mustard. Well, she ain't purty. It smells very good. Let's give our ärtsoppa a try. Wow! The mustard completely changes it. Completely. I remember liking this dish as a kid. I'm surprised at how good this is. Maybe it's because it ain't so pretty looking. I don't know, but I'm surprised at how delicious this is. And the mustard just does everything to it. It's acidic and it has that bright bite. And with the smoky ham that is so rich, the little brightness of the mustard cuts right through that. It's just the perfect accompaniment. I've never had it with mustard before, and I would never eat it without it again. It's delicious. Yeah, it makes sense, right? Ham, sandwich, you put really good mustard on it, it's delicious. I don't know why I wouldn't have thought of that, but I probably wouldn't have. The texture is a little bit mealy. It's a little bit pasty in some bites, but it's very rich and very delicious. Oh, I'm sorry I called you ugly. You taste really good. Well, my hat's off to the Swedes. I can definitely see why you would poison somebody with this because the flavors are really, really strong, but it's delicious. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, The Poisoning of Eric XIV, the Mad King of Sweden. And I really honestly hope that you'll give pea soup a try. I know it's a very old-fashioned dish, and as we've established, she ain't the prettiest, but it tastes delicious and it's got such history. I hope you give it a shot. I appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Stay safe. Thank you for joining me today as we went dining with death.